What's up, y'all? It's 10 at 3 time at Tennessee. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope everything in your life is going well. I hope you had a really nice Christmas/holiday weekend. Of course, it's still the holidays, I think, technically, until the new year. So the Christmas tree's still allowed to be up, all those things. We haven't taken ours down yet. It's weird. I never really know the exact time. I think my mom says a couple weeks. Some people go right after Christmas. Usually some wait till after the new year. We haven't put our stuff up yet, though, over there at Fort Rucker, just a couple miles away here from WBIR 10 News headquarters, where we are just a couple miles away from downtown Knoxville and the University of Tennessee campus, where Tennessee is not playing a football game tomorrow. It's playing a game about 2.5 hours to the west there in Nashville. Got a lot to talk about with that Music City Bowl coming up on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, December 30th, in here with Lord of the Streams, Tom Barclay, who has taken a week off and looks, are you refreshed?
I am refreshed. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas out there, and yeah, I'm ready to tackle this New Year's holiday here. We're going to go in strong here.
Yeah, I guess people have seen technically my face on fresh content as of Friday, but you know, we put a couple in the can last week with it being Christmas and all that, so it's weird because it's interesting, Tom, when you go work for a place and they talk about like work, family life is like a thing that exists and that they believe in. And so they were pretty much insistent that I spend like 5 days not working. So they said, put a couple things in the can.
Yeah, they really had to,
they were like
twist your arm on that one, right?
Twisting my arm to do that. They were like, no, just go home for it. And I was thinking about this.
Right?
I was thinking about this. I think aside from the period where I had left my previous job, had accepted this job but could not talk about it for a few months, so I was just kind of sitting there acting like, hey, I'm not doing anything, but I'll do something soon. Other than that time, I do not remember the last time that I took 5 days, did not work, and was in the continental United States.
Wow.
I couldn't. It may have been, honestly, when I had that medical incident like 11 years ago. It might have been that long. So I just kind of sat there. I think after a couple of days, my wife was like, "This is great, but you're going back, right?" Like,
yeah. Would you? Well, what?
You're going like, hey,
you want to go out and pursue a hobby or something?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think you got
you out the door.
You got a drone a few Christmases ago. I think it's out in the shed. You want to go play with that in the yard, or like, take the dog on about 8 walks a day? What do you want to do? It felt like that, but it was good to kind of just sit there and then, of course, you take that much time off and you come back and do a show, you're like, well, what do we do? Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing? It just feels like a significantly longer period of time than it really is.
Yeah.
When you're used to kind of bang, bang, go on, next thing, juggle a few sports at once. What's going on here? What's going on with recruiting? What's going on with the portal? What's going on with coaching searches? What's going on in, professional sports? Because there's ties there to sometimes with work stuff. There's just a lot of things going on, and you sit there for like, a lot of things have happened. Like, a lot of things have happened in 5 days. And, of course, we're not going to discuss all those things because a lot of those things are super old news at this point. Mm-hmm. So I think the best thing to do, most likely, is just to go ahead and get cracking on Music City Bowl stuff, because that jumps up on you quick. There's a lot of times where I'm kind of used to Tennessee for most of my career playing bowl games like in the whole, I guess, like New Year's Eve to January 1st or 2nd kind of window. And so last season was different because when you play a playoff game and lose, you're done before Christmas. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we just sit around for a couple of weeks. Yeah. Like, it's basketball stuff to go do. And, this one, it feels like maybe it's just because of the time that Christmas was on like a Thursday, right? Mm-hmm. And so then the next day is a Friday, and then you go to the weekend. And so it feels like, hey, they were like, put stuff in the can, put a couple shows in there, some mailbag stuff, have some fun, wish people a Merry Christmas, all those things. And then the weekend comes, and then Monday's here, and it's like, oh, wait, the game's tomorrow? It just jumps up on you quick.
It really does.
It's kind of like an edge rusher, just kind of gets on you right after the ball hits you. So there's a lot going on in that game. Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And, of course, as you know, I operate only in the Eastern time zone. No matter where I am. I think there are 2 time zones in this country, really. There's Eastern and Pacific, and the stuff in the middle, I don't. The only time in my life that I can sound dismissive about flyover country is specifically with time zones. That's it. In no other way do I do this. Because, I mean, we're basically not like we're on the coast anyway. But technically, we're
some
in
people would
Eastern.
consider this,
Oh, it absolutely is flyover country.
flyover country.
But
I don't subscribe to that. I don't
no,
believe there's any part of
I don't
America that
either.
we call
And
flyover. But
no, and I think
yeah.
people who forget that do that at their own demise or peril. But I think, just generally speaking, my only point is there's not many things I am truly pompous about. The Eastern time zone is one of them. And I know, lifelong Chicago Cubs fan, don't they play in the Central time zone? Yes, they do. Got a lot of family in Nashville, and of course, they're in the Central time zone. It doesn't exist to me. It just doesn't. I get confused. I don't like it. Even in an era where now, your phone and even your watch, in a lot of cases, will automatically change over when you drive over and go there. But I just don't like, if I'm covering something and it's in the Central time zone, especially if it's like an SEC tournament or NCAA tournament and you're there for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of almost, you just like, hey, they're like, tomorrow the game's at 11 a.m. I'm like, no, it's not. It's at noon. And I just kind of try to operate there because I just don't. And a lot of people who are Central time zone purists discuss how much better it is for sports. And I could on some level understand that, but I've always been more of a night owl anyway. So that later hour doesn't bother me at all, and it's kind of fits right in with things for me. Like, I love that when the games, whether if it's a baseball game or a football game that kicks off around like 10 p.m. Eastern, you got live entertainment until like 1:32. That's kind of right in my wheelhouse. No matter how many times you get up for early morning daycare, I'm still just up at those hours. My body just won't let me sleep. And so, long story short, I don't dig the Central time zone. So we're going to say it's 5:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And what's interesting about this is Tennessee opened as a 6.5-point favorite over Illinois way back when, week 2 ago, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it had moved, maybe after some opt-outs, some early bets going on in Illinois, it moves to 2.5 and kind of stays there for a little while. It did, however, just now move from 2.5 to 3 as of like in the past 30 minutes. And what's interesting about that to me is that at least on, and again, I've never put down a sports bet that was an NCAA tournament or betting my brother or friend on a golf course, like about, hey, $5 a hole or, whatever, things like that, NCAA tournament pools. I'm not against it morally, ethically, anything like that. I just don't do it. Maybe I know my personality can be a little bit obsessive or addictive, and I just kind of avoid all that. But for work purposes only, I follow it closely because sometimes it tells you a story. And sometimes when lines move very quickly or significantly, you go, what has happened there? Something is going on behind the scenes here. Either somebody's gotten hurt or somebody for another team is coming back, or, there's been, something going on at practice that's not sure, or a guy's going to be suspended and, it's kind of not out there yet, but it's somebody's gotten wind of it, or some sharps have put down heavy money on something and they usually know something. So what's interesting to me is that at least on DraftKings, 86% of the bets have been on Tennessee. And even despite that, the line wasn't moving much. So there's a lot of people who know much more about this than me. But that leads me to start thinking, like, does Vegas feel like they're just going to have a windfall on this one? Because they're not moving this. All these bets are going this way and they're not moving it. So what's going on there, right? That just seems interesting when you see that large a percentage on one side of it. And again, for like the small percentage of people who are super into this, who also listen to this show, kind of like that probably not large but not small Venn diagram, those people are probably running off the road, punching things, saying, "You idiot, stop talking about this. You don't know anything about this." Well, I think I know what I would say is more than the average person, just when it comes to betting. When it comes to sports, you kind of have to know stuff, except for the past month where I've not called a game correctly to save my life. And we've talked about this.
We can just ignore
We've talked about this. So I've not, I know more than, I think, like with sports betting and what it means, more than the average fan. But there's definitely a chunk of people and fans who know more about it than I do, and some of them are even my friends who know more about this than I do. But I find it interesting when there's that many percentage of bets going one way and the line doesn't really move. That, to me, is interesting because, as you know, Vegas slash sports books in all these states, as a business model, they don't tend to operate by taking baths very often. They tend to win. They're a business. You don't make money as a business, you don't exist. So they usually know what to do in these situations. They win more than they lose, right? Like card games and things like that, maybe a different story. If you're super smart, you can do things, but like they know and have known for years how to kind of set these lines and what to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me was interesting because we'll talk about all the Tennessee opt-outs here in a minute, and there have been obviously some significant ones. Also a couple for Illinois that are interesting, right? You've got the big edge rusher who's first or second round pick this year, 11 sacks this season. He's not playing in this game. You got their starting left tackle who's graded out at like an 87 or so in Pro Football Focus's grades this year. Their starting left tackle, he's not playing. So they'll have a guy who's starting for the first time in his career at left tackle. Interesting. And they got a safety, one of their leading tacklers, one of their key leaders on defense. He's had a surgery that he could have had after this game, but he had it before this game to kind of either get ready for the NFL or come back to school if that's what he wants to do. And so those are three pretty key guys for Illinois that are out. And then you've had other guys who aren't playing a lot, who want to transfer, those things. And Bielema can be a little bit cagey about injury stuff too. I don't know if he's as cagey as Josh Heupel, but he's pretty cagey about stuff. Just kind of Big Ten, there's a lot of program. When you kind of grow up in that environment, you've been in the Big Ten and you've coached in the SEC, your guard stays up. You're a little paranoid. That's just kind of how things are. And so they could have more. But those are three pretty significant pieces for Illinois that are out in this game. Now, they're a key quarterback who's really, really good. Tennessee tried really hard to get him to leave Illinois last year, and he didn't do it. He stayed. They tried hard, though. They were going to pay him, from what I understand, a good bit of money NIL-wise. After Nico went and they hit the oblique button, and then we're kind of looking around. They ended up with Joey Aguilar, so they didn't do bad. But Altmaier was one of the top guys, former Ole Miss guy, transferred to Illinois, had a really good year last year. And hey, they tried, and or people on behalf of them tried, if you want to put it that way. Didn't end up happening. He stays at Illinois. He's really good. He's there. But Illinois doesn't really have what I would say a great win this year. It's beaten USC at the Horn, 34-32. It did early in the season kind of wallop on Duke, which wasn't great, but did rally kind of back into the ACC championship game and then win it. So not a bad football team, just not really meh. And then against the four best teams, I think maybe on their schedule, they weren't that competitive and lost. Indiana beat the brakes off of them. They weren't really competitive against Ohio State, weren't really competitive against Washington or even Wisconsin, which is not a great team. So this year anyway. So there's not. They're a solid team. So I see why Tennessee would be favored here, but you start looking at some of these Tennessee opt-outs, that changes things. It just does. I mean, if you at any point in this season, said Tennessee was going into a game without, Jamal McCoy, Ricky Gibson, and also without Arion Carter, Chris Brazzell II, Josh Josephs, and Colton Hood, I would say that's horrifically bad news for Tennessee. Those are a handful of guys. I don't know if I'd call them completely irreplaceable, because obviously even McCoy and Gibson were replaceable because you got Colton Hood coming in, and he's going to be a first-round draft pick maybe this year, and he's leaving pro early. So, and then, Ty Redmond, the freshman, becomes solid player by the end of the year. Freshman on, all SEC, maybe freshman All-American, some places we'll see. But you don't want to say irreplaceable, but pretty close. Josh Josephs may be replaceable only in the sense that you've got a lot of other really good edge guys. You got West and Bailey who can still play out there. You've obviously got, Caleb Herring. You've obviously got, Jordan Ross, if he can get healthy and be more effective. He was so impressive early in the season, then had some injury issues and So we'll see what's going on there. But Tennessee's recruited some young guys they really like there too. They've had edge guys for a few years who are good. Now, you're not going to say take Josh Josephs out of the equation and you won't notice. You're going to notice. Josh Josephs is a freak. And it's kind of like if you took Stephen Pierce Jr. off the field, you'd be like, that's a freak. Guy might be NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year this year. Like, he's a freak. Josh Josephs, very, very good player. And then you take Arion Carter out of the defense, too. A guy who I think, all things considered, maybe their best defensive player when he's healthy. And I think it's good for him. He fought back hard from that turf toe, tried to get out there for a couple games late in the season. I think him shutting it down and getting ready for the draft is exactly what I would do in his situation. Because if you go back early in the season, watch those first 2-3 games. Watch those first 2 or 3 games with Arion Carter. You will see one of the better linebackers that's been at Tennessee in a hot minute. He is good. Really good. Really, really good. To the point where people were saying this year, later in the year, they were saying, Wes, why are you saying Arion Carter is going to go pro? Like, he's been injured. He's kind of been limping around. He's not looked outstanding. He could come back maybe next year and make a lot more money. And my response to that pretty consistently was, I don't know what Arion Carter is going to do. He hasn't told me. But I did watch those early games this season, and I watched that film, and I'm pretty sure NFL guys saw it too. They know turf toe's a real thing. They know it hinders you. They'll go back and look at times he's been healthy the past couple of years. Yeah, they'll be all right with that. And I thought he would go pro because it just looked like the right decision for him. Now, of course, you're saying that on the front end. In hindsight, it's totally different. You know, it could be totally different. We don't know. We don't know. But you look at that and you go, yeah, I see why. So that's why all season long I kind of thought this would be his last season, because just early on, those first couple games, I watched a guy and I was like, that guy's going to play in the league for a long time if he's healthy. He is good. A modern linebacker, sideline to sideline, can cover, really, really smart, incredibly smart, tremendous character, a guy who everybody who's around him knows what kind of person he is, what he's about, really smart, understands both like academic stuff and football stuff. You got that FBI, that football intelligence. And you can see that in the way that he snuffs out things and his instincts on the field, and even the way he'll kind of feint and then time his blitzes really well, and you'll go, yeah, that's what the good ones do. That's what the good ones do, is that. So I just kind of thought he would go. And he is. And so you take him out of the equation. So just on the defense, McCoy, Gibson, Hood, Josephs, Carter, not out there. Whew. You're facing a quarterback like Altmaier? Yeah, that's a concern. That's a real concern. You put those things together and you go, I kind of get why when you look at the opt-outs in those matchups, and you're like, okay, Illinois playing without its first-team left tackle, guy who's got good grades and, looks like he's got a future in this game. And, okay, they'll miss him for sure. They're starting a new guy, first time at Illinois that he'll be a starter this year, transfer from Idaho. The Idaho Vandals. What's up, Vandals? In Moscow, Idaho, by the way. That always makes me laugh. The Moscow, Idaho Vandals, who used to play and maybe still do in a really, really small-looking dome stadium. Because if you've ever been up to that part of the country in the winter, you'd want to play inside too. There may be a lot of differences in Moscow proper and Moscow, Idaho. Both pretty cold in the winter. They got that in common. But so he's been practicing all year but not started, and he's going to go out there and play against some of the edge guys Tennessee's got. That's okay. That's a real thing. But then you look at the Tennessee's opt-outs on defense and injured guys, and you go, that's a lot. You're talking premium players at all three levels of the defense. There are three levels in a defense, right? No matter how you do it. You go 4-3, you go 3-4, you go 3-3-5, you go 4-2-5, you play dime, whatever it is, there are three distinct levels in a defense. And Tennessee's defense, which, as we all know, not great this season. We've discussed that ad nauseum. Not much more to add to it, but not been what you would call a great defense. Did have some great players, though, at all three levels. Had a couple of really, really good players. And there are three levels in a defense, and you're taking at least one premium player out of all three levels of the defense. Now, again, I don't like to be extreme. I try not to be. I think that's silly. There's too many people in this business. Even if I wanted to do that, which I don't, the market's kind of cornered. The sports field's kind of saturated with those kind of, let's say what we can get to go viral things. I'm not doing that. I'm not about that. But I will go, when you lose at least one really good, critical component on all three levels of your defense heading into a game, not a great thing. I think we could all sit down in a circle, have a nice, civil, proper discussion, and all come to an agreement that in a strictly binary good or bad sense, that's bad. Now, we might disagree on just how bad it is, but I don't see a lot of scenarios where somebody's sitting there going, I actually think this is a good thing. It's not. Unless you're thinking maybe big picture, get some guys some reps, sure. There are components of it that are okay for the long run, maybe. But if you're talking about just put this in a box, this game, take one key component out of all three levels of your defense, not good. Think we can admit that. So maybe there's some movement there based on that. That would make some sense to me. Then you go to the other side of the ball, and you've had a couple of reserves transfer, guys who weren't getting a ton of playing time, looking around doing some other things. But the big one, obviously, is Chris Brazzell II. He's not playing in this game. If I were him, I probably wouldn't play in this game, so I understand that. And people, again, can feel a certain type of way about that, and that's fine. I don't want to yuck your yum there. I can't say you're wrong. I just, again, it's a non-CFP bowl game. You want to get healthy for combines, and you roll an ankle here, and or something even worse than that. Then all of a sudden, that I understand. I understand why it changes things. I just do. And if I were him, I would say, I would tip my cap if he wanted to play. I love those situations. But I file that under, there's kind of a category I have that you may not call it like reciprocal in a way, I guess you could say. But there are situations, and I have them in my head anyway. I don't speak for anyone else, and I don't care to, and I don't want to. Don't have the ability to. I'm not smart enough to. But I will say that I have a category where if you do something, I tip my cap to you. If you don't, I don't judge you. I get it. And so you would think normally like something that, if something's worth tipping your cap, if you do, in theory, wouldn't it be worth at least a little bit of scorn if you didn't do it? Isn't that what a fair world would be? I don't think so. I think there are situations where I go, if you make a smart business decision, the safer business decision, I get it. But if you want to take a bet on yourself that you'll stay healthy and that you'll play well and that you'll help your stock even more and you'll not get hurt in the process, then I tip my cap to you. I think that's cool. But I'm not going to sit here. Now, if a guy takes his ball and goes home for like a playoff game, yeah, that's scorn, buddy. That's scorn. All right. I'm not about that action. But I think if you look at this from the point of view of, if this were one of your kids, what would you tell them to do? If this were your own decision, and you might say, I'm a Tennessee fan for life, this means more to me than the NFL ever could. Okay, that's fine. But would your story be that way with a really large check thrown in your face potentially? I don't know. And you'll say, hey, these NIL guys they're paid to go out there and play. They are. But for a non-college football playoff bowl game, I don't. At that point, it's kind of as much about the next season anyway. So I don't care. Now, you would say, are you a hypocrite then because of what you've said about Notre Dame and continue to say about Notre Dame? No, and I'll tell you exactly why. I bet there were a bunch of guys on that Notre Dame team who would have loved to have played. Maybe some seniors who would never get another game at Notre Dame, and they don't have a sure bet at the NFL level. Maybe they'd love to put on that Golden Dome one more time. Maybe there are walk-ons who will never really get the opportunity really to go out there and play in a game. There's no guarantee they're going to get like a Rudy type of situation. I bet they'd love to go do it. And then some freshmen and sophomores who will be key players on the team next season, I bet that while they wouldn't mind being home for the holidays, getting 15 practices in, or at least a dozen practices, and then playing in a game with reps for next season, I bet they'd have been okay with that. They got hurt feelings about not being in the playoff, but, and if guys don't want to play, fine, I get you. But unless they couldn't cobble together like 45 guys, I don't know. I mean, an NFL team takes about 45 or whatever into a game. So I'm not – I just don't – I don't think that's – to me, that's not – it's different. Because you had a chance to go out there and prove a point. And if you lost, so what, man? If you lost because you had 15 guys don't want to play, whatever. Doesn't matter. Now, maybe they really didn't have enough guys who wanted to play. Maybe there were some injury concerns there. Maybe they just thought, you know what? Even from a practical standpoint, let's take our sore feelings out of this. Maybe they had a reason practically to do what they did. Kind of doubt it, but you could see it, and I don't want to assume. But so that's where I draw the distinction there. Because clearly, despite these opt-outs here, Tennessee still is like, we're going to go play a game. Most other people, pretty much everyone else around the country, we'll go play a game. Yeah, we'll get some practices in. We'll go play a game. Josh Heupel was telling a story this morning about the last time Tennessee was in this exact bowl game, the Music City Bowl. There was a young player who'd had an up-and-down year for Tennessee. He hadn't been a consistent player. He'd had some good moments, some big moments, but also some tough moments where you wonder, man, why was he such a big prospect? This guy's not very good. You can't rely on him if you want to be competing with the Bamas and Georgias and LSUs. You got to do better than this. And they were understandable concerns at the time. That young man goes out for the Music City Bowl practices and has 2.5 really, really good weeks. Goes out there in the game, makes a few big plays, has some good stuff on tape, and all of a sudden, things look like they might be different for him next season. And they were. He went out there the next season and was named by members of the media, myself and many others, as the best player in his position in the country. And he won a big award for it. His name was Jalen Hyatt. And he used the Music City Bowl as a springboard. Not in the classic sense in which you think of, man, he goes out there and has this huge game against Georgia and announces himself, his presence with authority like Nuke LaLoosh and all these things. Okay, it wasn't that. But he used those weeks of practice to dial in. He knew he was going to play a lot in the game. He did. And then he did some plays in the game, had a really good offseason. He's named the best wide receiver in the country the next year. Goes high-ish in the NFL draft. Still making checks right now. And so you can look at this game. That's the kind of opportunity you have. So what if Notre Dame, who's recruiting really well, by the way, they'll be just fine. But what if they have a Jalen Hyatt type of guy on their team that now he's not going to have that moment because he didn't have those practices. He didn't have the opportunity to go play a game against a pretty good team in that wild Pop-Tarts Bowl that always is so wacky. And have a good time and you get confidence. And so that's why I say these games, they are what you make them. Now, you could say that about everything in life, and for the most part, you're correct. Just about anything in this life, sports, non-sports, it can be what you make of it. And if you look at this as an opportunity to get better, to give yourself confidence, to give your coaches confidence in you, then you can go out there and take advantage of it and seize the moment. Now, of course, Josh Heupel, being Josh Heupel today, was asked about that and said, oh, there's some guys who I think could do that this year, which naturally led to the follow-up response. Who are some of those guys? And Josh Heupel, being Josh Heupel, said, hopefully I'm telling you about them tomorrow. Now, a skeptical person might, and a jaded person would, say, well, he's just waiting to see who plays well in the game, and then he'll go back and fill in the story. Maybe. I'm not saying I believe that, but could I see it? Absolutely. Was born at night, not last night. I could believe that. I could see that. But maybe he just doesn't want to put pressure on one of those guys that, or maybe if he talks a lot about him, then all of a sudden Illinois is going to go watch film and say, what's this guy about? Well, if they're hyping this guy up before the game, they're obviously going to put stuff in for him. What kind of athlete is he? What's he doing? What's he about? Let's look out for this. So, Heupel being Heupel, I would lean more toward that. Now, you could say both are a little bit silly, but I would understand one more than the other. I would understand competitive advantage, disadvantage. While I do think that coaches go silly with that stuff, and they do, I understand a lot of it. And I understand why they always err on the side of, I won't say anything. And as someone who was a reporter, now kind of a columnist or opinion driver or stater of opinion or whatever it is that you call it that I do, BS probably, but but still report some too. Even from this side of the fence, I understand, and I do try to respect competitive advantage, disadvantage. If it usually, there's situations where you got to write something or you got to say something. That's just us doing our jobs. There's also times where you go, you know what? Is this that big of a deal? Is this such a big deal that it is worth putting it out there into the world 24 hours early and potentially put your thumb on the scales for a play or two in a game? I'm not comfortable with that. That's a whole entire ethical discussion on what we do and what we don't do, and it's always, we say you like to think these things are black and white, then you get into the real world, and it's really, there's a heck of a lot of gray in all of it. There just is so much gray in it. And so you kind of have to take you can have some hard and fast rules, but I think also it just comes down to every case kind of being its own and being judged on its own. And from a competitive advantage, disadvantage situation, like if I hear on Wednesday or Thursday that a guy has a really sore ankle and he's going to play in the game, but he's not going to be 100%. What is there value in me breaking that story? Yes, of course there is. There's a lot of selfish, me energy there, motivation there to go out and do that. But is it so important to have that and potentially irritate a lot of people who you're going to need to work with on a daily basis? I've made them mad before, and I'll do it again, and it's part of the job, but that doesn't mean you do it just to do it. You pick your spots. And normally in a situation like that, my thoughts are usually, what's it matter to me? It's not. Now, if this guy goes and gets arrested, well, that's getting written, period. Full stop. You get arrested. It's on a public document. I can see you. There's footage of you in handcuffs, getting thrown in the back of a car. You have been caught in a fight on camera, and we can all see it. There's a document saying you're in the Knox County Detention Center. That is being written. Period, dot, end of sentence, end of story. That's getting written. The public needs to know that information without question. It does. Because that gets into public safety and other things, and that's information you need. And if someone gets arrested, honestly, it's information you can just go get yourself if you know who to call and where to look. So that's public. Nothing about that. However, a guy steps on somebody's ankle in practice and rolls it. So it happens just after the injury report. This is in the old days when they didn't have to do those things. Do you really need to mention it? No. What do you have to gain from that? You get a couple hours of really good traffic versus a bridge you've burned for later when you really could and you always try to get something out of it. You try to pocket it and say, hey, I'm sitting on this. At the end of the day, it's a business, and if you're not usually doing, there's some things you'll do just out of the kindness of your heart, but it's also business. It's like, hey, I'm sitting on this, and I'm sitting on this, so you owe me one. And most people respect that code. And so that's kind of where these to me are really fun conversations to have in the summer, especially when there's not as many active games going on, to kind of peel back the curtain and discuss these things. Because I think fundamentally, there's a lot of people who don't care about our jobs, but there's also a lot of people who don't really understand them. And they think they do because they've seen movies and TV, and they think you get into it, it's different. Like, I don't judge, I don't pretend to know. Like, I know my parents' jobs, my siblings' jobs, my spouse's job. I know a fair amount about that because I hear about it every day. There's other things that I have no idea what that entails. I've seen that on a movie. I've read about it. I don't know. So I try not to assume. But that's kind of how those things go. It's like, does the public need to know this versus what's the value of kind of saving it for something better? So there's a lot of these, and this, thankfully, if there are many good things about the SEC mandated injury reports, because they take a lot of this stuff away. Like, if it comes out that you find out a coach has lied about that, they get in trouble. They're supposed to be honest about these things. But there's going to be guys who we'll see in non-conference games, you can still kind of be cagey about this stuff. I don't know exactly, and I should. I know with the college football playoff you have to. But I don't know about some of these other bowl games, and frankly, I probably should, but I don't, so I apologize about that. But when you look at what a guy could do in a game like this, who are some guys, based on what we know about who's not going to be in this game, who are some guys who could do something with this game? Who are some guys who could take advantage of that? In Braslow's case, it's sort of obvious in one way and maybe not in another. The obvious thing is Radarius Jackson and Travis Smith Jr., the freshman wide receivers, very talented guys, highly recruited guys Tennessee thinks highly of. Both had a couple injury situations at times this season. Also, we know Tennessee just doesn't really rotate at the receiver spots very often in this era with this staff. So those guys, you would think, obviously they'll get more opportunities. But I also look at a couple of young tight ends / receivers. I know Deshaun Brame's kind of a hybrid guy, but I look at him also, and I look at Jack Van Dorselaer as guys who, Ethan Davis, we know, is getting those starting tight end reps because Miles Kitselman can't play. He's hurt. So you look at some other guys who could do some stuff. I look at those young tight ends, and I guess Brame's a bit of a hybrid / kind of a positionless guy, just a tall pass catcher is what I would call him. A TPC, tall pass catcher, or BPC, big pass catcher. I don't know if you're a slot receiver, a tight end, H-back. Well, I don't know exactly what you are, but you're a tall guy who catches passes, and we're kind of playing positionless football with that position anyway. So I look at those guys as guys who could do something, and maybe there'll be somebody that we haven't considered before. Maybe there's somebody who sneaks up on us. But I would think that. At Joseph's, I think obviously, if Davis is healthy there, but you're still okay. You got a bunch of guys who can play that position. Caleb Herring obviously will get even more reps now. So I look at those guys. There's a couple young freshmen too who I think could do some stuff there. Now with no Aaron Carter, we know that's going to mean more Spillman, right? We know that. He was going to play anyway. Hopefully a lot of Jaden Perlotti, because I love that kid and think he could be a star. Hopefully that means more for him. Without Colton Hood at corner, my guess, and I don't know this, obviously Ty Redmond, if he's healthy, starts at one of those. The other one, that's interesting. And I think they might do this. I think they might give senior walk-on William Wright that start because everybody in the program loves him. He got the pick six, late in the year. He's played some at Tennessee. He's been thrown into the fire before at different times in his career, and he's had some tough moments, but he's also stepped up and had some good moments. And I would think, Tennessee native, I would imagine the feel-good story there. And just to be honest, probably structurally for your defense, smart thing would probably be to start him there. But then your young guys, your Poteach, your Merritts, I think those guys, some young guys are going to get some reps there too. And maybe one of those guys could have just a heck of a game. I mean, Ty Redmond had some struggles, and then all of a sudden, how good does he look? So, yeah, I mean, there's no world in which you don't miss Colton Hood. There's not one. And he's a guy that I'm glad he's getting some first-round mock draft hype at least, because tape don't lie. That dude is an all-around ball player at corner. He will stick his nose in there and fight you in the run. He'll hit you. He'll get in your face. He's got really good instincts, good ball skills. That's a football player. That guy, I'm glad. I mean, corner is just an absurdly hard position to play. To play it well, even harder than that. He's really good. There's no guarantee at the next level. There never is, but that's a ball player, I think. There's a lot of guys there who I think could take advantage of some of these situations. I see guys out there, and to be honest, I'm probably missing some. There might be some guys who, well, what about George McIntyre at quarterback? And we know Joey Aguilar's starting, and we know he should. Or at least I do. I know he should. I think he should. Again, I'll say think and no. I think he should, and he will. I also think if you can have a chance to give McIntyre a little bit of burn here and there in the game, if you can do it, and I'm not saying, again, this is one of those tip the cap if you can do it. I'm not going to scold you if you can't. But if you could play him a little bit in the game, that'd be nice. You may or may not be surprised to know that Josh Heupel was asked specifically about that this morning, and drum roll please, was vague. He said, we'll see. He said, however, he did say there is no plan specifically for him to go in on the second or third possession or anything like that. They're going into the game trying to win it with Joey Aguilar as the quarterback. If a situation emerges where the score dictates it one way or the other, or they're winning by a lot or losing by a lot, or maybe Aguilar's kind of rolled his ankle here, and you normally would keep him in the game, but let's just make sure he's okay. He gets his bell rung. We're going to make sure he goes through the proper concussion protocols and all these things. Then, of course, you get a bit more of a free hit to go and play a kid like that in a situation. Because I look at these things, and I know a lot of people don't, Tom, and I won't disagree and say this is one of those things where I can say what I think, not what I know, because I don't know. And a lot of people see this the other way. I see these games as free hits. I see them as, and again, some people who are actual hardcore Tennessee fans will obviously disagree with me on that. This will be the last Tennessee football game they see against a team not named Tennessee for like 9 months. 8 months, 8.5 months, whatever it is. I don't do math. So you look at it and say, well, I want to feel good about the offseason. And my answer to that is this needs to be a bad vibes offseason anyway. Because the thing that really mattered, the thing that everyone should remember, the thing that no matter what happens in this game, good, bad, ill, whatever, the way Vanderbilt played with its food against you in your own stadium to end the season, after the quarterback ran his mouth the entire time about what he was going to do. You let him do it. Anyone who's back from that team, the way Jeremiah Telander talked after that game needs to be exactly how everybody in that program feels all offseason. Don't lose it. Don't forget it. At least when you're in the building, when you're working. You got to have good mental health. It's the summer. Take a vacation. Go be by the pool. Go see the pretty girls in the sundresses on campus. Go be you. Go unwind. You got to get away a little bit. But when you're clocked into work, no matter what happens in this game, that Vandy game, that's what matters. That's what matters. But I don't think that changes if you go now. If you get the brakes beat off you in this game, that's a bit of a, you're a bit of a, you're a little bummed about that going into the offseason. But I don't. Even then, I think there's no feeling in this game that could possibly be worse. Famous last words, right? Than after the Vandy game. And I would say the same thing if you beat Illinois 35-7. If you look the way, the Iowa game a couple years ago. Even if you have one of those games, I don't think that could, would, should, will lighten the mood from the main point, which is that this offseason needs to be about what Vanderbilt did to you and how something like that ain't going to happen again. So when I think about it through that lens, I think, oh, it's a free hit. You've got, on your defense, 5-6 guys out, including at least one dynamic player at every level of the defense. Sure. It might not go great at times defensively. But you know what? Same was kind of true this season. Pretty much the whole year. Most of it anyway. So, go out there, play hard. Keep it simple. Find ball, see ball, hit ball. Don't let man behind you. Go out there and try to play some ball. Offensively, sling it around, have fun, run the rock. Try to make some plays, take some shots. Joey Aguilar will take shots. He doesn't care. You take a guy from the stands to replace Chris Brazel and have that guy run down the field. Aguilar's going to give him a chance to catch the football at some point. He's going to throw it there. And so I particularly don't particularly care what the result in this game is. We'll all watch it, and of course tomorrow we'll have Emily and Elijah down there, and we will be hopefully during this program speaking with them as they're there live in Nashville. I'm staying here running it just like the most handsome studio analyst you've ever seen in your life right here. Then, yeah, I think of this as, go have fun. Go entertain people. Go out there and entertain us for a few hours. Play a little ball, chuck it around, hit people, have a good time, If you lose, If you win, that's good, but it ain't what matters. What matters is what Vandy did to you. What matters is the fact that you should have been a college football playoff team and you were not, and you could have been if you just done a couple simple things a little bit better. And that's the fine line that exists in this game. And your schedule next season is more difficult by any measure. We don't know. We can never know exactly until the games are played. But, hey, on paper, it looks a lot tougher. So that's the bar you got to get over next season. You can't just fix the little things that prevented this season from going slightly the wrong way. You have to erase those things and just get better. So you got to fix what you did wrong, and you got to get better, or else you're not going to be in the playoff next season. That's just it. You could be significantly better next season and still not be in the playoff. So if you're not significantly better, you absolutely will not be in the playoff. And hey, you go out there and buy Jim Knowles as your coordinator. You got some money to flash in the portal. You bring in another top 10 class. Some say top 5-ish class. Hey, the other schools are trying too. They're bringing in good classes too. They got good money too. And some of them were better than you were this year. So, yeah, I'm not going to say that you just go out there and do your job and you'll be fine. No, that was the case this season. If you'd just gone out there and done your job and executed this season, you'd have been in the playoff. Now, you would have been not going very far in the playoff because I think there's a couple teams that are just better than everybody. And if you'd run into them, they'd have housed you probably. But you'd have still been in the thing again, which is great. So there's no guarantee that if you just go out there and do your job next season that you'll be in the playoff. There is a guarantee that if you don't, you won't. And even if you go win this game, even if you win it, remember Vandy. That's your new Alamo. Remember the doors. Remember Vandy. Remember that feeling. Bottle it up. Put it, first thing you get up in the morning, it's on the mirror above your chest of drawers, and it's on the mirror there when you're shaving or brushing your teeth or whatever you're doing in the morning. Get out of the shower, boom, it's right there. Have your phone set a reminder twice a day at the same time every day, and it beeps at you and just goes, hey, remember Vandy. Remember that feeling. Don't lose it. Because that people talk about finding their why. That's a pretty good why. So you got to go get better anyway, no matter what you do in this game. So what I'm saying is I'm not getting too low if this game is lost, even if it's lost by double digits. Now, if it's a house call, then that's bad. If you're beat them down, that's bad. But even then, and I'm also not getting out in front of the skis if they win this game, even comfortably. Because it does not, win or loss in this game, changes nothing at all about the lessons needed to be learned from this season. Not one bit. Not one bit. So it's a free hit. Go out there and have a good time. Try to get some good vibes going with the win. But even if you win, and I suspect Josh Heupel feels this way, there's a reason why he doesn't get too high or low. I think that's, for the most part, the right mindset to have. Because no matter what happens in this game, it ain't the point. It ain't the point. The point is, could have been in the playoffs and you weren't. And the point is, even if you just done your job this season, you still needed to get better to get where you want to be next season. And I'm not saying that, and I'm not being negative here. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying this game doesn't matter. But I am saying it kind of doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter. So just go out there, have a good time. Right before we get out of here, just very quickly, there is a tiny bit of basketball recruiting news, although I don't think it pertains to Tennessee necessarily. One of the best, arguably the best point guard prospect in the country, Deron Ridley Jr. He's got Tennessee in his top 5, and he's announcing on Tuesday. I don't think Tennessee's really, really, really in that picture, though. I think that's either Duke or NC State, just based on what I've heard. Now, obviously, that could change. But I don't see that being the issue. And the Tennessee's got another basketball game tomorrow. But we have more time later in the week to discuss that because guess what's coming Saturday? Start of SEC basketball play. That's pretty exciting. Hey, no matter what happens tomorrow with Tennessee football, basketball team playing right there at the end of that football game. Kind of they'll overlap a little bit. And then it's SEC basketball time in Tennessee. So that's exciting. And then before too long, really just 6 weeks or so, whatever it is, baseball time in Tennessee. 7 weeks, I guess, baseball time in Tennessee. And if you missed it, go back. We talked with Josh Elander last week and had a good time with that. So we'll have more stuff coming up on that with the season approaching as well. But right now, at least the next couple of days, mostly about football. Mostly about kind of putting a bow on this thing. And we will see tomorrow just kind of what that bow looks like. But I urge you, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Not that big a deal. Vandy was the big deal. And if you forget that, we'll try to remind you again here in about 23 hours, and we'll see you then.